Yeah. Ryan, what's your title there, please? I am the call center manager here for the household charge. Call center manager? Yeah, do we speak before? I think I've been trying to get information from household charge for a while. Listen, Ryan, I'm asking what that beeping in the background is. What beeping? There's like a beeping in the background. I'm not sure. I can't hear you. Okay, go ahead. What can I do for you? What sort of a beeping is it? Just a regular beeping. Can you hear it there now? No. Okay, I can hear it. Anyway, what can I do for you? Right, I'm about to sit down and write a letter to Neela, but I need her surname in order to make sure it gets to her. Sure. Neela, the standard policy here is that the agency staff don't be our concern. And there's only one Neela here, so if you send a letter to her, she's sure to get it. Or you can send it to Neela and I'll make sure she gets it. So Neela is what? What is staff? Neela works for an agency. She's agency staff? Yep. Right, so are you agency staff? No, I'm not. I work for the LGMA. What's the LGMA? The Local Government Management Agency. And your title again? I'm the call center manager. And is the household charge, are they a private corporation? No, we're a bureau on behalf of the department to just administer the charge and answer any queries that have to. The Department of Environment, Local Government. So are the household charge being paid monies to do this? To be honest with you, any queries like that you probably have to go to the department yourself. So I'm going to ask, don't worry, I'll ask the department, that you guys are going to be copied in this, because that's okay. To date, all I've had from you guys is refused to answer the question. You don't seem to know the act. Sure, look, what I would suggest you do in this instance, any further queries you're probably better off. No, that's not right, but I just want to ask you a direct question. Have you read the Act? I haven't either. So where does it say in the Act that it's mandatory for people to register? As I said, any queries relating to the Act itself, you'll have to go on to the department. Are you refusing to answer the question? No, I'd say you're better off getting on to the department. Is that okay? So why don't you answer the question then? Thank you very much for a phone call. It's recorded, by the way.
That's a kind of an introduction we do. We made in the region of maybe 10 or 12 calls to the Household Charge Bureau, which is in Dublin in some location, and we called the constituency office of Phil Hogan and in Kenny, and we spoke to, I don't know, maybe 10, 12, 14 people. And I'd safely say out of those 14 people, 12 and a half of them had not read the Act that we're going to tell you about today. Okay. And the people that had read the Act, like Ryan O'Gorman, he had apparently read the Act, but he wouldn't answer any questions. And every time we rang to ask questions about the Household Charge Act, we didn't get any answers. Nothing whatsoever. They either, as I said, they hadn't read the Act, or they failed and refused to answer any questions that we had specifically about the Act. Okay. Now, that tells us a lot, and we went into, and we'll go into it in a little while, the story of what happened and why we're here today and why we're here speaking to as many people as we can around the country. Just so as everybody is aware, and for the record, none of us here are solicitors or barristers or judges or lawyers or accountants or qualified professionals. Okay? So we just want to make that clear. We're just, as we say, we're just gobshites, and we're walking around and we're telling people what's going on, and we're telling people what we know about the law. Speak for yourself, yeah. So, along with that as well, we just want to make it clear, we haven't got any agenda. We're not involved in politics, and we're not affiliated with any political party or religious group or secular group. We're just lads.
We're a cult.
We're just a cult.
Cult chase, maybe.
Cult chase, yeah. So, we have no affiliations or allegiances to anybody like politics or anything, any of the professions. We're just the same as everybody else in the room, no different. Our purpose in going around the country and trying to tell everybody this is to educate everyone, because we think that if you know the law, you won't be afraid of the law, and if you know the law, you won't be afraid of revenue, and if you know the law, you won't be listening to the spin that's out there, and it'll remove the fear, and that's what has everybody the way they are at the moment, where they're actually afraid of the household charge, afraid of the property tax, they're afraid of revenue, they're afraid of what's coming next. So we know, because we now know the law, and we were in a meeting there about an hour ago and I think it's fair to say everybody in the room now is not afraid of revenue. Would I be right in saying that? Yeah? And there isn't a need to be. But look, that's basically us. Now, just to sort of round it up before we get into the detail of the information that we have for you. We're non-partisan, but basically that means that it doesn't matter if you have declared for the household charge or the property tax, and it doesn't matter if you've paid or not paid. So we're not going to discriminate between people. And again, if there is solicitors or barristers or lawyers or judges or accountants or professionals in the room, we're not having a go at the people here today. And we're expecting that everybody in this room today will just be here as one of the people, not here in office to do it to anybody. We're just here giving you information, and that's about the height of it. And normally to sort of bring everybody back down to earth, I usually tell a joke, but I didn't get much of a good reaction the last time. But I'll try. Do you want to hear something?
Yeah,
Go on.
very good. Throw it out, the crap will fuck you up.
I don't mind.
We have an expert.
It is already. Okay, this is it now. What do you get when you throw? Oh, come in. You're here just on time now. Right, you hear it?
Youngest supposed to be out.
That's it now. You're here just on time. We're going to tell a joke. Okay. What do you get? What do you get when you throw a piano down a mine shaft? A flat minor.
Oh dear God.
I'll tell another one.
Teachers and all.
I thought that was good. Okay. What do you call a sleepwalking nun? A Roman Catholic. Oh, come on. Right. I get on. Right.
That's it, probably say with this.
Right. Stick with this. Thanks very much.
Ah, go on, lads, give him a fucking clap.
Well, if you guarantees to stop.
Right, this is how it all started. Going back to October of 2012, we run a little school over in Portlaoise, and what we do in the school is we teach people about how to protect themselves legally from the likes of banks, county councils, the state, anybody that's coming after you in relation to commerce, money, and sometimes we guide and direct people in other issues as well. So in the school back in October, a man came forward, and what we normally do in the school is we ask people for whatever problems they have on the table, and we put it out to the class to get the class to sort of work with us over the weeks and work out how to solve the problem. And it could be a financial problem, it could be an issue where they're being challenged in court over something. So we just work with the class and get the class to sort out the problem. So the man came forward, his name is Tony Keegan, and he was the first man in the country that was being prosecuted for the non-declaration of the household charge. And as you know, the household charge came before the property tax. Okay? And we'll speak about that in a little while. So Tony came to us and said, lads, I've got this problem. Mayo County Council are trying to prosecute me and persecute me in the court, and what are you going to do about it? And we said, well, we're going to do nothing about it. You're going to have to do something about it, but we'll work with you and try and find a way through it and see if you can put up a good defence. Because he didn't want to capitulate, he didn't want to give up, he didn't want to sort of throw in the towel, he wanted to fight it legally. So over the next couple of weeks then we worked on it, and we actually found the answer. We found a defence room within the Act itself. So that's going back to October, and the actual case went back further than that. I think it was March 2012 they first came after him, or thereabouts, I don't know the exact time. So the case has been ongoing, and he's been in the court now 5 times, and they have not been able to prosecute him. Now the last 3 times we were sitting in the court with them, so the dynamics of what was happening in the court is beginning to change. Now because they haven't been able to prosecute him, that means nobody in the country can be prosecuted for non-declaration. Okay? So in that respect, if everybody just thinks about this, if the county council come after you for non-declaration of just a household charge, you can quite literally say, look, Your Honour, if you want, there's a case over in Mayo District Court and there's a case in the High Court in relation to this matter, and it would be unsafe for you to prosecute me. You can actually work off the back of what he's done. So they cannot prosecute him, and we'll explain why they can't do it. They just cannot legally get him.
Like a test case scenario, so on.
It's possibly a test case scenario, but we know the law. Now, as I said earlier, we're just average fellas here now. We're not qualified professionals, this and that and the other. And the reason we iterate that and make sure you know that is because anybody in this room can have the same information that we have. It's not that difficult. Now, by the time this day is finished, now normally, if we were just to bring you into the school environment and not have you ask questions or anything, this would take 20 minutes to understand, at worst. Now what we'll do is, we'll get the material out now to you, and if you leave questions till we're finished doing the material, and then ask any questions you want, we don't care, put in any challenges you want, we'll do our utmost to just give you a straightforward answer, okay? There's no bullshit here, it's just what we know, and this will protect you legally from the property tax and the household charge. And that's no bullshit, we don't make any claims we can't back up, none of us. Okay. So with that now, I'll hand you over to this fella here beside me.
Okay, let's move. We're just going to show you the legal bit at the start, just so you understand that all of this has happened. This is the actual summons that the County Council of the County of Mayo sent to Peter Anthony Keegan. So that's the District Court summons. Okay? And that was to be heard on the 4th of October 2012, and that case is still going in and out and in and out. That's where it's at the minute. As a part of the school and what went on, during the school we started to talk about this and the legality of it, and we came up with a list of questions as a result of being in the school. So we sent a letter to Phil Hogan, Michael Noonan, Alan Shatter, any of those guys, and Michael D. Higgins is even the last person on that letter. But there was 111 questions asked in the letter, and none of the questions were answered. We never got a response from any of the people that were sent the letter. We got no response from anybody suggesting that they did even receive our letter. They've never acknowledged that the letter exists. They've never tried to answer the question or anything. So that's where that is. If we got a few good luck with it from here. After that, after sending 2 letters to these people, we then decided the only way we could deal with them would be to bring them into the High Court and ask them the questions in public, seeing as they refused to answer them in private. And we did so by issuing this particular summons on Phil Hogan and so many others. Michael Noonan was one, and Alan Shatter. We also invited in Ward McKellen, who is a solicitor, who's prosecuting the man in the District Court in Westport, and John Condren would be the Secretary of Mayo County Council. So we had questions that we wanted them to answer, and we wanted them to come in and talk about it. So it's a private case that was taken as well. As you can see, all of those people are named just as themselves. We didn't sue any ministers, or we didn't do anything like that. So the form on the left that you're looking at then is the Chief State Solicitor putting in an appearance for these people, and the form on the right is also a notice of motion that was put in before the High Court by the Chief State Solicitor's Office on behalf of the defendants, which would be Phil Hogan and the crew, and they were looking to strike the case for want of prosecution. So they didn't want to talk about the questions at all, they wanted to strike the case instantly. So the case went in on the 4th of March 2012, and Judge Roderick Murphy was the judge who heard the case, and Roderick did oblige the Chief State Solicitor's Office, and he did strike the case for want of prosecution. So the case was struck out, and after the case was struck out, then we put it in on an appeal straight into the Supreme Court. So the case is back in before the Supreme Court at the moment, and that's where the talking will have to be done, because obviously we weren't expecting anything else to happen, but that's neither here nor there. We needn't worry about that. That's just something that's ongoing. So just for the record, before we go, we're going off all the court stuff now. Tony Keegan's case is still before the courts, okay, and we still have to deal with that particular issue. So what we want to talk about is a scam, and we want to show a scam that has been pulled. This is just one scam now. It's not that this is the only scam, but this is a scam in relation to the Household Charge Act. Now, some people get a bit frustrated. They're saying we're here to talk about property tax and you're talking about household charge. The two things are connected. Do we understand that?
Yeah.
That, you know, we can't have one without the other, because the declaration is in the household charge. There is no declaration in the property tax. Like, people are confused because the word declaration is on the LPT1 form. The only declaration on that form is you're declaring that the information you put on it is correct. That's not the declaration that you owe money. The declaration that you actually owe this tax is in the Household Charge Act. So the €100 part of the Household Charge Act was all smoke and mirrors, and it was put in to make us focus on the €100, and we were to forget about the declaration. And that's what that was about, because the household charge, from any reading that I have done on it, I just don't understand the Act, you see, because the Act is a fraud and it's a scam. And the main reason for it was to get us to make a declaration. And then you can clearly see in the Act that these people intend to bring in, the English are bringing in a bedroom tax as we speak. So the number of bedrooms that you have in your house, you get taxed in the UK now. Which is, it might, but you see, it's funny, but it's actually scary at the same time, because this is actually coming down the road at us. And the only thing is, we can see it and we don't seem to want to see it. And, you know, but look, we'll go through it and we'll show you where all of this stuff is, and we'll see what you actually think of it yourselves. Now, that's the colour. Okay. This form here, we want to start with this. This is the infamous HC12N form. That's the household charge form. Does everybody recognise that form? No. We got the good looking man to hold it up. Yeah. Right. That's the actual form. So we go on here. So there's 3 pages when you open the form out. You have 3 pages to it. So the form, the HC12N, if you pay particular attention to the amount of information that's required on the left-hand side, which is here, so you can see how much information they want from you on this form. You see here, again, and you can see the amount of text that's here. There's a massive amount of text there. Like, for any age group, it's not easy read. This here is the payment page as well. So this, we're going to call that a promise to pay, and we'll come back to it. We'll come back to that promise to pay or after. You can see where we've desellotated. These pages are perforated. That this whole form is designed for this to move away and for this to move away, and this can be left on its own. So we go to the back of the document. Then you can see the amount of text again here, which is hard to read. You can see the amount of information that's required here. This is the front page of that document now, and then we've got a white page in the middle. Now, just on an observation, would you not think there's something wrong with the design of this form? Because the form is green, and yet we have a white page in the middle. We have a whole heap of text here, and twice as much on the back of this that can hardly be read. Surely somebody should have spread some of the text over onto this page. Would that not make common sense?
And make the writing bigger.
Would there be no, but like, obviously, if I had commissioned somebody to design this form, and it was supposed to be a form just to gather that information and inform people and do whatever it was to do, and somebody brought me back this, I don't think I'd pay him, because I think he would have lost the plot when it came to designing it.
No, you've asked the question of the room, that's why I'm answering it. I give him a bonus.
You give him a loan.
The fact that he produced a form that nobody can actually read without a magnifying glass.
Well, it's not so much, but you see, we need to move on about, we're not even worried about being able to read it. This is what we want to talk about now. But if we turn that back around, and now we're going to just concentrate on this page. This is a promise to pay. Okay. Under the Bills of Exchange Act 1882, a promise to pay is maybe a cheque, whatever, or something like this. This is actually a promise to pay. This is your promise to pay them. you understand that? So what you've done is you've signed this up and you've agreed that you owe them €100 per year. So what you have now is a situation that you have a financial instrument. 100 Bills of Exchange Act, this is a financial instrument. Now, the banks used technology to bankrupt this country and half the world. And that technology was securitization and derivatives. Does anybody argue that?
No.
But what this is no different than the instruments that the banks securitized, because what they do is they bundle. So you can actually bundle all of these. Okay, there was 1.2 million people filled this in. So you've got 1.2 million of these, you can bundle them there on the table in bundles, and you can put a big elastic band around it, and that is known as a tranche. Okay? You can now securitize that particular tranche, and you can form, it's like a field with potatoes in it. You've drills of potatoes, each one would be a drill, and this is what you have. So this has the potential to make, if you securitize it in its lowest form, okay, the most conservative form, the 120 million that they collected is capable of producing 1.2 billion if it's securitized. Now, if you were to put that into a bond, say a 10-year bond, because every time the Irish get money, they are issuing bonds. If you were to put this into a 10-year bond, it's worth 12 billion. Okay, so that's just something. Now, I'm not saying for a minute that this is what they're doing, but what I would like to know is why do we have an instrument here which is capable of doing this? That you can actually do this, you don't have to do anything else, all the work is done here on this form. I want to know where did the form come from? Because it's an incredible thing to think that 1.2 million Irish people managed to find this form all on their own and fill it in when there is absolutely no legal or lawful requirement to do so. So how can that actually happen? Is that not incredible in itself? So that's not the scam that we're here to talk about, but it is part of a scam. So now we have a situation where people have filled it in, but where it came from, we're not certain. We don't know who actually decided to produce this form or why, because it has no place in this whole scheme. Well, it has a place in the scam, but it has no place in the law if we go through the law. So we're going to go through the law now. This is the front page of the Household Charge Act of 2011, and it's available on AttackTheTax.com. It's also available on Irish statute books. It's available on several platforms. Okay. Now, it's just in case you might think we've altered the text of this document. We have not touched one letter in any sentence or in any form in these documents. Okay, so nothing has been altered in anything. Right, so we're going to jump into the Act. Now this is 3 or 4 minutes of something that some people find hard, so but at the end of the 3 or 4 minutes you will have clarity, so if we just stick with it, okay? This is Section 5, and Section 5 is where the owner of a residential property shall make and provide to a relevant local authority a declaration. This is where the declaration is. We want to enlarge that up to read it. So Section 5.1 says the owner of a residential property who on a liability date is liable to pay a household charge to a relevant local authority or is entitled to a waiver from payment of a household charge under subsection 4 of Section 4 in respect of the year in which the liability date falls shall make and provide to the relevant local authority a declaration stating that he or she is so liable or so entitled as the case may be. Do you all understand that?
Yeah.
Now, you see, but the beauty of this is it's written in such a way that you're not supposed to really understand it, and it's designed to make most people put it down after they didn't even get to Section 5, because most people got as far as Section 1 and 2 and they put it down. You don't want to read it because it actually doesn't really make sense when you start looking at it. But the reality is, if we go to, you see where shall is? See shall there? Well, that's really all that this box is actually saying. The rest of it really is irrelevant, and they keep repeating the rest of it. You're going to see when we go to number 6 in a minute, the first 2/3 of the text in the box will be very similar to what you've already read, and they keep putting this in. It's just a play with words, and but basically what they're saying is that the person shall make and provide to a relevant local authority a declaration stating that he or she is so liable. Now we forget about the entitled, because the entitled was only if you were entitled to a waiver. Okay, so most people were liable. So that's what you're supposed to do in the law now. This is the law as well, so we have to understand this. These are the rules. So, Section 2 beneath the red box says, a declaration referred to in subsection 1 shall A. be in such form and contain such information as may be prescribed. Do we understand that? Right, we see, it's the first room of honest people we've had, because most people tell us they understand this, and we move on, and they don't. But like this is, have we got that? It's in it, right? Okay, right. Well, it's just as well, because I don't believe most people understood this, because that's how 1.2 million people ended up filling in the form in the first place, because of the way this is written. So we will just move on, and we will explain as we go. This is Section 6 of the Household Charge Act. Okay, so we're just going to zoom in on the page now to the red box again. And Section 6 reads, the owner of a residential property who on a liability date is liable to pay a household charge to a relevant local authority or is entitled to a waiver from payment of a household charge under subsection 4 of Section 4 in respect of the year in which that liability date falls, shall, before the expiration of such period as may be prescribed, now there's this word prescribed, make and provide to that local authority a statement in writing containing such information relating to the residential property concerned as may be prescribed again, for the purpose of enabling the minister to prepare and maintain a database of residential properties in the state containing details of accommodation, facilities and services available in respect of such properties. So anybody that's under the illusion that we're not going to have a household tax or a property or a bedroom tax is seriously disillusioned, because you see where accommodation is mentioned there. Now, they don't worry about that accommodation anymore. You won't hear any more about it. But the fact that it's in and we did sign up for it means that when they come looking for this information in a couple of years' time, you better believe you owe it to them, because you've already testified that you owe them this information because you've made your declaration. So you can see where you get reeled in this thing. And people wonder, how does this happen? So all these taxes that are coming behind the property tax, it's safe to say that there are other taxes intended to come behind it. Right. We're going to move to second arrow there, shows 2. It says a statement under this section shall be in such form as may be prescribed again. So the word prescribed is 3 times there so far, okay? So that we understand that statement again. It says a statement under this section shall be in such form as may be prescribed. Now, the household charge, this is just to clarify what we're after reading, lads. It states in section 5.1 that a declaration must be made stating that he or she is so liable. Are we clear on that? Okay. It also states in section 5.2 a declaration referred to in subsection 1 shall A be in such form and contain such information as may be prescribed. We're happy that that's what was said. Okay. So where will this form and information be prescribed? Now we just want to examine what these people have said. So be in such form and contain such information as may be prescribed. That's from the previous pages, okay? So let's examine the wording, be in such form. This does not specify that you must fill in a form, okay? Or any form whatsoever. It specifies according to their act and the statutory instrument that the form the declaration must be in is writing. So these people are playing with words, and they have planted seeds all over the place in your head, in everybody's head, that there is a form. Because it says it will be in such form as may be prescribed. The average Joe and Mary believe that there is a form.
Can I ask a question specifically on that case? The statutory instrument, is that the way it actually appears on the form, what you've up there?
Exactly.
So, in other words, there is no such declaration required or asked of by that particular piece, because STS, TUTORY.
Oh no, look, that's actually, I think I was drunk when I done it.
That's
No, sorry, that's actually.
Well,
No, this isn't. I actually did that, and I was told to change that 100 times, and I didn't. I hit the S button instead of the A. Jesus, forgive me, you're very critical, aren't you? We're not going full of this. Right, but look, there's the way it's written, lads. There. Now, I've put it up, so like the statutory instrument, okay, fine, you have me on that. So we go on, and it says, and contain such information as may be prescribed. So where is this specific information prescribed? It's prescribed in the statutory instrument. So you have two instruments, so we just need to be clear. You've got the Household Charge Act of 2011, that's one document. And then you have a statutory instrument, which is a second docket, and that's, that gives force to the Act. So the two together, this is what we have. This is the statutory instrument. Okay, now the statutory instrument is statutory instrument number 1 of 2012, and it's called the Local Government Household Charge Regulations 2012. So you have the two, okay? It's written by Phil Hogan. Now, we're going to go straight into it, and we'll be finished this now in 2 minutes. This is page 2 of the Household Charge Regulations. You can see the arrow, it points down to making of a declaration. So this is where they prescribe what's in a declaration and what you must do and what you must legally provide them with. So the red arrow points to section 5, making a declaration. As you can see, section 5 starts on page 2 and ultimately finishes on page 3, making it more difficult for the ordinary man and woman to see this scam. Because what happens is, if you understand psychology a little bit, if you've ever read a bit on it, when you actually turn page 2 to page 3, automatically your brain doesn't worry because it knows some information has left over here, and when you go and read the rest of the information you won't really associate whether anything is missing or not because you've already deducted that you have left something behind. So that's just a little play that these people bank on. So this is page 3 of the Household Charge Regulations 2012. You can see for yourself that all the information prescribed is there. So this is the rest of it, and it finishes at the end of the red arrow. Okay? Now what we're going to do is, what we decided to do was we would sellotape the bottom of page 2 to the top of page 3 and take a scan of it. So that's what we've done. So now you can actually see the whole thing together. Okay? So that's all we've done there. So we're going to zoom in on that particular red box now. That's exactly what is required. Okay? So we can see every bit of that. It starts up there at the top with making of declaration. Now we're going to read this out. Section 5 says, number 1, subsection 1, a declaration shall be made to the relevant local authority in writing, okay, or electronically via the householdcharge.ie. 2, a declaration shall contain the following information. So it's the name of the owner of a residential property in respect of which a declaration is made. B is the address and, if necessary, to identify the description of the property. C is the address for correspondence of the owner of the property. D is the PPS number of the person who, in the case of an individual, is the owner of the property. E is the tax reference number of a company which is the owner of the property. That doesn't apply to most people, okay? Unless you have a company that owns the property, it's irrelevant to you. F is whether the property is connected to a public water main, a group water scheme, or a private well, or it's not connected to a private water supply. So that's what the declaration requires. Legally, this is what you must provide. Now, if anybody has seen this information before, I don't want an answer, but like, does anybody see anything wrong with that?
Read it out again. Read it out again.
Will we go through it again once more?
Against the Data Protection Act to hand over the person's PPS.
No, but you're providing it yourself. They're not any of it. So this is what you were required by law to give them in a declaration.
Where it's addressed to the wrong person, they're asking for the PPS number of the...
Yeah, well, we need to go into that just now at the minute. We'll deal with all of that, but like, this is just, if everything is correct, this is what you're supposed to do, okay? So, we'll go through it again. A declaration shall be made to the relevant local authority in writing or electronically via householdcharge.ie. 2, a declaration shall contain the following information, and this is the information now. And these are the prescriptions, this is where it's prescribed, okay? The name of the owner of the residential property. B, the address, and if necessary, a description of the property. C is the address for correspondence if you have, that's obviously if you have more than one home, the PPS number of the person, and E is irrelevant to most people. F then is whether you're connected to a public water main, a group water scheme, a private well, or it's not connected at all to anything.
Can I say something? When I read this, when this stuff came out, what jumped out at me is public water main or private water main or well, because apart from the property tax, this is setting up to sell off, to actually commodify the water in this country, which is what I saw was the water.
Well, they're trying to bring in water tax.
Yes. No, they're actually trying to sell off the water.
Yeah, no, but they have that done. But they're still want a tax.
Not yet. They're still here.
It's well done. That's just to do with the water tax, but we won't even worry about that side of it because we're still focusing on just the property tax element of this. We have a man, you have to remember, lads, the summons that we showed you at the start is a district court summons for not making a declaration. So what we need to do is we need to put ourselves in the place of the person who got that summons. So every one of you now has this summons for not making a declaration. Now we're examining the law because this is what we're doing. We're here trying to get our defence together because we're going in front of a judge. So what, when we go in front of the judge, are we going to do to defend ourselves?
They can't
Is
force
it
you
the
to make a
shall, just
declaration.
we
is it?
shall, rather than being forced to do it?
Well, shall is a word, right, that's fine. It is something that we are looking at and we will deal with that word later, but it's not exactly, at the minute, exactly what we're looking for, Claire, but
Doesn't
we're...
look for your signature.
A declaration you make
somebody
your
said-
Hold on, hold on.
Yeah, somebody said it.
Calm down.
Hands up.
You were saying something?
A declaration you make your own free will, you have to have a place to sign and date.
No, the man.
You see,
No,
right,
they can't
so
force
we've
you to
two
make a
G's.
declaration.
Two G's.
Instead of one. Right, so fine. Nowhere does it actually say you have to sign this declaration. Do you not find that incredible? Now, what else? You've obviously mentioned there's two things missing. They haven't actually prescribed that you have to sign the declaration, and they have failed to prescribe that you must date the declaration. So when you go, but just so we make sure people understand this, when you go in front of the judge with this summons, and the judge says to you, "I believe you have failed to make a declaration," what are you going to say to the judge?
But there's just one thing that jumps out at me there. Do you legally own the house if it's mortgaged?
I would look at that. That's a
That is
different
another
game.
argument. That's a contrary argument. But
It's nothing to do with
Oh, I know what you're saying, but it's just something.
Yeah, but you can't go and ask the judge, do I own the house, when you're there for not making a declaration. The summons is for a declaration. Okay, it's not. He hasn't been summoned for not paying the household charge. He's been summoned for not making a declaration.
But should the
You
provider
can't be
has...
forced to make a declaration. Can you?
But sure, the man has a summons, so he is being forced.
as far as the law is concerned, yes.
Just the
So
summons.
there's a declaration. That's not even a There is a declaration.
But now you see, no, but that's fine. That's my question answered. Right. That's that's what I would actually do myself if I was in the court. When they would say you failed to make a declaration, I would answer with exactly that. Well, the question I would ask is, what declaration are you referring to? Then the prosecution for the other side is going to have to come back and say the declaration that's required by the law or by sure. We're in court now for not making a declaration, and these people believe we owe them a declaration. So we have asked the question firstly, what declaration are you talking about? And they've now pinned themselves down. You see, what we need to do is we need them to pin themselves down that they have now said it's the declaration in the Act.
Have they not made it law already?
So, obviously, what will we do next?
Get them to prove it and show us the act where they're after making it law?
So it would be logical to say, is the law in the court? And obviously then they will have to produce this, and they will say, okay, this is the declaration we're talking about.
So then you have to query what is it.
But your logical question would be next then, how would I make such a declaration when you have failed to legislate?
They haven't legislated properly, so it's not there.
How would I do it, like, when I can't? And let's say, you see, the only other argument you have, because we have discussed this with ex-solicitors and stuff, and they have looked at it, and they're saying, oh, you might get caught in the district court. This was the best one that came out of it, that we had to think about it for a minute, and they said you might get caught because the judge could say the only currency in the district court is verbal, so I'll accept your declaration here now. Well, does anybody have an answer for that?
Still not signed or dated.
No.
They never prescribed that it should be on the form.
No, let's look at it clearly. It says section 5.1 says making of declaration, a declaration shall be made to the relevant local authority in writing. So you can't be making verbal declarations if it must be in writing. Okay? So, can we see the scam?
Yeah.
Can we? Is there anybody stuck?
I am. I'm completely stuck. I got lost about 5 minutes ago. What's the answer? What is the answer? What is the scam?
You can't see the scam.
No, I
You
can't.
don't have to sign the declaration and you don't have to take the
It has no
declaration.
legal force if it
Okay.
hasn't got a signature.
Right,
or date.
right.
So
I
it
have that.
can't have any force of law. If you're in, how can a declaration that is unsigned and undated?
Right.
It
has
is-
to have no permission
Yeah.
first.
You cannot force any man or woman anywhere in the world to sign something they don't want to sign.
But
You
see,
can't
this
force
is,
them.
So if I don't give them my permission to do it, they
If you
can't.
don't sign it,
but if you don't sign it, but you see, lads, we had to get into a debate then with some legal people, and we had to see what's the situation. So it came about then that what way would we put it? They were shocked by this as well, and we were asked, like, have you changed anything in this or what have you? And we're saying, like, this has never been altered. All these words are identical as to the way they come in on the act. And the first thing that came up then, they said, well, obviously a couple of things have happened. So either we have the dumbest minister in the world has written this instrument,
No argument.
or we have the sneakiest minister in the world has written it. So, no, but you see, it's one or the other. So he either made a genuine mistake and left some stuff out, and I don't think we can accuse him of being genuine when you see what went on out in Dubai when the budget was.
Yeah.
But
Hold on one second. I would be familiar with parliamentary procedure. He had no act or part in that. That was done by parliamentary draftsmen.
yeah, but his name is on it.
He signed it.
Yeah, I understand that.
So
I
it's-
should look
it's
at
culpable.
DPL.
But he says at the start of it, he says
his
you're over.
own deportation. One that would know.
Yeah, well, that's fine.
Yeah.
But the second bit is, and if we're going into the philosophy of this, parliamentary draftsmen have been known to leave wording like that in place when they're not fully behind the particular act.
Yeah, well, I don't believe that either, though, in this instance, because the bottom line is, how can you actually get people to make this declaration? In reality, how do you do it? Because you cannot force people into making this declaration. If you were to try and force the person beside you here today to sign a declaration that they owe you some amount of money, which person would end up in jail? The person who tried to force the other person to do it. You cannot force somebody against their will to make a declaration, and that's period. There is no debating it. You can't force somebody to do something against their will. Are we clear on that?
Why do they have the right then to summons us if we don't do it?
But you see, this is all smoke and mirrors, lads. We're not saying that they have a right. It looks legal.
No, but they're claiming they have a right there. If I don't sign that declaration, they're claiming to prosecute me.
They're only, at the moment, they're going after one man.
They're not claiming. You see, what they're doing is they bring you into a court of law. Have you ever been into court?
I have several times.
Right. But when you go into court, the first thing you were asked is, did you make a declaration, or why didn't you make a declaration? And you're going to say, I don't know, or I didn't. But you've just testified against yourself and you've just lost your case.
Yeah.
Do you understand?
Yeah.
And then you get your fine. And that's the end of it, because you've actually gone in and done what they wanted you to do. So you've acknowledged the fact that it was there. You were supposed to do it. And that's where the scam is. And as long as all of this remains in place, of course people will get prosecuted, unless you go in and defend yourself against it. So how can you be prosecuted? Is everybody in the room clear that you can't be prosecuted before we move on?
Can I? They won't do it to you.
Well, what we're
Anyway.
saying, yeah, they will try, definitely. Now, they are trying at the moment, and the same man has been in the court 5 times, and he's due back in again the 6th time and a 7th. We already know there's going to be a 7th time at least. They won't prosecute him, because they can't prosecute him, because it's out in the public now, there's this information they can't use to prosecute him, because he knows it, that's his defence. So therefore, there's another 3 or 4 people in the court behind him. They can't be prosecuted.
Basically, is it, sorry Darren, basically is it about, it's really empowering ourselves here as a collective is what it is.
But you
to
see
actually go in and be able to stand
No,
up
but you see,
without being afraid.
well, we see, the thing is, we shouldn't have to go in, because you see, we're not interested in all of the people having to go into court and playing this game. Because the bottom line is, what we have done is, you're aware that we have set up an SPV, and we are going to go in and we are going to dismantle this, because this is not legal. And you cannot do this. It's as simple as that. There is no place in law for this. This is a scam. And if you can't see that this is a scam, until such time as you see that this is a scam, we should stay in this room. There are people still in the room, is there, that don't understand what we have done. I'll go backwards a bit if we need to and do it again.
Go backwards.
Yeah, go
It's
back.
mainly fact that the form isn't mentioned.
Yeah. You see, we have... Will we go? Actually, if we go forward, will it be easier?
Yeah, go for it.
Rather than go back. I'll just go forward.
Could I ask just one question about that, and that is that why don't they just change the law to say?
But you, this is what we're trying to get into your head. You cannot put it in there.
Okay.
So if you put it in there, you're breaking every sort of an international law that was ever put in place on human rights and everything, because you cannot force people to make a declaration. And the bottom line is, it would require, this is where we had a thing, we had some ex-legal people came in, and one guy nearly fell off the chair when he saw this, and he just said, go back again, and we went back again, and we kept going forward, and he said, is that written exactly as it is there? And I said, identically to it. And he said, that can't happen in law. There is no basis for that in law. And I said, well sure, that's why we invited you here in the first place. And he said then, the reality of the situation, lads, is the only way you can actually put it in there that the people have to sign this declaration is if you call a referendum. And you ask the people, and this is what you would have to ask the people in the referendum, lads, we're trying to bring in a whole raft of taxes on ye. And we would like ye to vote and say that ye will admit that you're liable for them. Now, that is the very exact same equivalent of asking turkeys to vote for Christmas. How would you get it through? It couldn't be done. So what they've decided to do, as you can see, is they said, well, Jesus lads, if we were to put that one, I know we're after pulling Nice on them and they voted twice and they did it, I don't think we'd get this one in, even if we had to go 3 times on it. I don't think they'd get it in, because people won't vote for this, more taxes on them.
50, I'll stay with you.
So, but what happens then is they have made a decision, obviously, that, well, shit lads, we won't look for the referendum. We'll actually draft a bit of legislation and we'll put it out there and we'll create a HC12N form and we'll convince them that the form has to be filled in, because lo and behold, if you look at the HC12N form, it clearly has a space on it where you must sign and date the form. Where is the date on the surname? Right. There is the form. There's where your property owner and the signature goes there, and there's the date. You see it right on the bottom of the form. 2 pieces here.
But that isn't in
So
the
yet,
statutory instruments.
the form that is never mentioned anywhere throughout the Act or the statute. So we have the 2 documents. The law clearly has never mentioned this form once. So there is no need for any man or woman on this island to have filled out this form, and 1.2 million people filled it in. Now, is that not incredible in itself? If you try to get a scam like that going, you would never pull it off. Does anybody know of a scam that was pulled off like that, where 1.2 million people filled out a form, they signed and dated that they were liable for taxes that they should never ever have had, and we're saying that this is the situation. Now, the 1.2 million people that have signed this form, if they become shareholders and we take the case, and if we go in and dismantle this law, we can get them their money back.
Brilliant.
And that's the bottom line. And
Brilliant.
what the solicitor had said to me was, he was a practicing solicitor back in the 70s. Fianna Fáil in the 70s, in 1977, Jack Lynch had no hope of winning that election because Fine Gael and Labour were in coalition and they were going pretty well. And what they actually did was they brought out a manifesto saying that they would abolish domestic rates.
Right.
Isn't that correct?
Right.
So in 1978 they abolished, they did get elected. He came in with a 20-seat majority, which was the highest in history at that time. And they did abolish domestic rates in 1978, but they also did increase VAT by 2.2%. And, yeah, but hold on.
I have to stop you in your wording. This is important. I've been labouring this for a long time. They did not abolish domestic rates. They changed the method of payment.
Yeah, but domestic rates
That's important legally.
Yeah, but domestic rates are not charged on...
No. They changed the method of payment to an indirect method. They did not abolish
Yeah, well,
the rates.
fair enough. But we're just talking in general, because what we're trying to do, like, we're not here to talk about domestic rates. Okay, all we're talking about is what they did was they created a hole where this money for the rates used to be. There's now no money in it. So what they had to do was create more money, so they actually increased the VAT rate to compensate. So the reality of the situation is that the Irish people are paying property tax since the 70s and never stopped, because we never got the 2.2% reduced off the VAT at any stage. So we actually are paying, if you buy a bar of Cadbury's chocolate, you are actually paying household tax. And that's a fact in life. So we just need to understand that.
I think the main difference was where the councils were collecting this and they were using it at their will. They had to put their hand out, go to the government to get it in. That was a big change, but the money was still there.
But it's far simpler than that.
But
See,
look
that's
at-
a residential property tax.
Yes.
And we're all domiciled here, so it doesn't apply to us. It only applies to the likes of Bono, who's domiciled in the USA, comes over here to manage his restaurant and lives overnight in his house. He's a resident, and then he buggers off home again back to his domicile.
Yeah, that's actually a very good point. Well, you see, the thing is, you've got 1.2 million people who have said, yes, we agree with this. See, now, it was done fraudulently. It was done fraudulently. It's a fraud. It's a scam.
What is actually, it's a fraud perpetrated by the media.
No, the media are party to it. What we're saying here is we've recognised the law, and the law should not exist. The law is wrong, so we're going to go after them. And we have them.
But
the
it's
man,
a good law.
the man in
I think
Westport.
Bono should fucking pay residential property
Yeah,
tax.
okay, but the man in Westport is being prosecuted.
But what about all the other people that are going to pay it? You have revenue now, we're going to start chasing people around, gathering money from them.
They should get a dictionary and take a look at the two words.
But that's the...
Use logic and reason.
Yeah, but you see, logic and reason means that they're coming after everyone that has a house. And we need to understand. So, like, us sitting here talking shite about words isn't going to help that
But
situation.
what
We
they're
need to
doing
talk.
is they're sending out an offer. If you're a resident, you let them know. If you're not, let them know. Send it back to them. It's no contract.
We're trying to clarify that, Leo, so as everybody gets it. You see, what we're trying to put across to people is the law from two perspectives, okay? The legal perspective and the lawful perspective, and we can do both.
But why don't we focus on the law that they're going to try and use to prosecute people and just show that the law is an ass?
Yeah,
And that's basically
The
it's a
summons,
scam.
but it wouldn't it be far more valuable to let people know that a summons is an invitation.
Yeah, but
can
you
either
see,
accept
Leo,
it or
look
reject
at
it.
that's
You missed the start now, so you're...
Oh, I know, sorry about that.
with the greatest respect is what happens is we go around and start trying to educate people about what you're talking about. We're going to be labelled lunatics and free men and all that, because they're actually starting to put labels on people now. And in Canada, if you're a free man at the minute, you are borderline
But it's
terrorist.
actually commerce.
Yeah, but
it's the
look,
commerce we were
I don't want to go
talking
down
about.
this road now.
Yeah.
Okay, so can we leave that and we'll go with the
Yeah.
presentation and we'll go with questions after that then? And because I think we're just going crazy here at the minute. It's turning into a bit of a farce because we're going down a whole load of avenues. Going back onto this topic, it says nowhere in the state's prescription does it state that you must sign this declaration, and indeed nowhere in the state's prescription does it state you must date the declaration. This being a fact, how will the state prosecute Mr. Keegan for not making this declaration when it is not lawfully able to legislate that he do so? That's the crux of the matter, and that's why we're here. Okay, so therefore the state has indeed set out to con the Irish people into signing and dating declarations they do not need to sign and date. I need power.
Bring the yes, please.
Okay. So what we're actually saying is how can this actually happen? Because everybody in the room finds it hard to believe that this is the truth. Some people are struggling with this. Is that correct?
Yes.
But the words don't lie. If we look at it properly, lads, that's exactly what it's after saying. Now, anybody who is unsure of this should go home and look at this 5 or 10 or 15 times, whatever it requires, until you can see clearly that this is a scam. And if you don't understand it, you should come back and speak to people who do understand it until such time as you understand it. But it sounds like we're brainwashing people if we have to do that. It is as clear as day that they cannot force you to make a declaration, and they have done everything they can to make you think that they can. And that's all it is. It's an illusion.
Belief.
And Mr. Keegan's case in the district court, that's going to the Supreme Court, you're saying, is it?
No, the district court is still in the district court, and we have the High Court case that we brought looking for the answers as to what these things are all about. That's going to the Supreme Court.
And it's connected to his case?
The two of them are connected,
Right.
so he's bringing that case.
Actually, I want to make a point there about that. They're connected but disconnected. We're treating the case in the district court as its own entity.
Right.
Okay? We want to run, and we want the court through the judge to prosecute.
Right.
We want them to prosecute, because then the law falls. But they won't prosecute. We've been in there 5 times. The second last time the man was in there, he said, "Your Honour, I want to proceed with this." And she looked down and she says, "Do you?" She wouldn't even look the man in the face. Okay? It's very clear that they, and specifically the judge, does not want to prosecute him. Because they can't. But they can't, you see.
Yeah.
He knows the law. They
But
can't.
their own law won't allow them to prosecute, sure. If we go back, like, there's their law. That's the law. You see,
They're caught up.
but sure, you're caught between a rock and a hard place if the person comes up with the right defence.
Yeah.
But you see, they have a statement in court. If you ever go into court and watch what goes on, you will hear it said in every court every day, ignorance of the law is no defence. So if you actually don't know the law and you go in and they don't actually explain this to you, well, you will be prosecuted. And once they get 1 or 2 successful prosecutions, everybody gets prosecuted.
There's a point I want to throw in there. Listen, with respect, lads, what we'll do is we'll answer questions in a few minutes. We want to get through the material first, just to make sure everybody gets the material. But there's something that we need to throw in, because we're talking about the district court case. As we said earlier, we wrote off and we looked for answers to over 111 questions. Okay, the first question that we had, and some people are familiar with this in the room, was for somebody to answer, be it the prosecution in the district court, or the counsel, or the judge, we don't care, Phil Hogan maybe, we asked, was the matter in the district court a civil case or a criminal case? Okay, that was the very first question we had. We weren't even going to ask that question, but we thought, well, we better start with fundamentals, because we suspected that it was a civil matter, meaning that it wasn't criminal. Okay, we suspected that. But we weren't 100% sure, so we thought, well, it's better to find out. So we asked that as the very first question. Was it civil or criminal? We got no answer, obviously. But by default, we found out that the matter was criminal. It's a criminal case. He's being prosecuted as a criminal in the district court. Now, do you get that? Do you get what that means, right?
Technically, so it means that everyone in the country that doesn't sign up to it is
A criminal.
a criminal.
You're all
Or deemed as a
criminals.
criminal.
You're all going to be treated, and you are being treated as criminals.
How many people in this room have paid the household charge?
We don't care if you have or haven't, we're just interested.
No, but you see, now you see you have a room full of criminals. Because nobody here has paid it. So you are if they have the way.
Welcome to the criminal bones.
But listen, I wanted to show something that might just help bring it on. If we move it just forward a second. The next slide is showing you exactly what you are lawfully required to put on a declaration. So, where are we going? There. That's exactly what you're supposed to have on your declaration, lads. exactly what's there is all they have prescribed.
Everybody has to put that name on, yeah.
Well, so that's what's required. So can you ask yourselves, where did this come from? This is what they're looking for as part of the household charge. That's exactly what they want from you. They want all of that. And that's all their law says that you have to give them.
So the legislation.
But you not
calls
find
for
that
two-
incredible in itself? That, and nowhere in their legislation is this form mentioned. It is not mentioned. There is no requirement or basis for anybody filling in this, and yet 1.2 million of our people signed that form.
Is that the 2011 Act, is it?
Yeah. So you have 1.2 million Irish people fill that form in, and that most of them filled it in fear. And that's, but like that's just not on. And it isn't acceptable that this is going to happen. And now we have the property tax coming behind it, which is going to be increasing every couple of years. That's going to go up.
Yeah.
Now we just can't afford it anymore, because I was speaking to a sales rep, and he's in full-time employment. He has a company car, and his wife is in the civil service. You have a two-income family. Now, after we started speaking about property tax, he actually said, look, for the first time in our lives, last month, a direct debit bounced, 2 direct debits bounced on us last month, one for some insurance policy he has, and one for his Sky television. Now, if that man can't afford to pay his bills last month, which means now he's in a situation where he's trying to play catch up this month, how can he pay a property tax in July? It's just not possible. So that property tax is going to drag him under. Now that is not acceptable. When you have people that are prepared to work that hard, you have the 2 members of his family are working. The husband and wife are working. And they're not fit to pay. How can they be expected going forward to pay this property tax, because they have been very sly again by bringing it in a half year, the first year, which means you're paying a small amount of money. Next year it goes up. How or where is he going to be finding this money? Because his income is actually probably going to get smaller. So it just makes no sense. And the bottom line is, people ask then, why are ye involved in this, lads? Well, like, I have a child. And like, she's 7 years of age, and in 10 years' time, we'll be probably in a situation where she's either going to be trying to go to a 3rd level education, which probably will be near on impossible, because the number of points required, even today, for kids to get into 3rd level education is phenomenal, because the amount of professionals that are on the dole. So in 10 years' time, what will it be like? And what is she going to do? So all she will be, that I can see, is a financial slave. And that to me is not acceptable. And like, we have to start looking at this, that are we happy to have our children, as Enda Kenny said himself, ground into the ground to pay foreign banks' bills? And then if she has children, well, you see, it won't probably be an issue for me, because the reality is I'll probably be only around for another 30 or 40 years. Or whatever the case may be. It's not really going to affect me, but it's all these people that are coming behind us. So do we just not give a shit, or do we try and do something to stop it now? Because if we don't stop this one now, all this other stuff is coming behind it. So this, I think, is our last real chance to go out there and do something and stop some of this from happening. And if we have a situation that we have an SPV set up, it's in place, lads. And that SPV is bringing a case. Every one of ye, as a shareholder, will be protected by that SPV. It's the same technology that the banks use to bankrupt this country is being used. You will be perfectly safe, nothing can happen to you. So the worst thing that can happen, you have to, like, we have to give the good and the bad. The worst can happen any shareholder by becoming involved with the SPV is that you might lose your initial investment. In other words, the €2 that you spend becoming a shareholder, you might lose the €2 because the SPV, if the SPV was to fail, or whatever. IBRC did the same thing. It was liquidated in the middle of the night under a cloak. Okay, and that's the reality. So that's the only harm that can happen or become of anybody by getting involved with the SPV. But what that solicitor had said, and this is what you need to understand, back when the rates situation in the 70s, people did take a case against the state and they did win their case and they did get their money back in the 70s. But then that solicitor told us that he got involved in a bigger case and they went in and they went to get their money back and those people's money back, and they were told that the fact that they were not an interested party in the original case meant they were getting no money. Now these are words from the man that was involved in the case. Now he thought that what we have done is so brilliant that way, because if and when we strike down the household charge and the property tax, anybody who has paid the household charge or the property tax, the SPV can sue for money damages. And we are going looking for every penny of that to be paid back to those people that it was stolen from. And that's the biggest part of what we're about. It's not that we just want the law gone, we want the money that was taken to be given back. Because these people have a way of finding money for private banks, none of them being Irish. Are you all aware that none of these banks, Bank of Ireland is an English bank. It always was and always will be. Allied Irish Bank is not an Irish bank. Ulster Bank is not an Irish bank. There is no Irish banks on this island. They're all foreign banks. And we are bailing them out. Now, if a referendum was called and asked you, did you want to bail out those banks for 65 billion and mortgage your children and their children, would you have voted for that? No. But like, isn't it logical to say that you wouldn't have voted for it, but yet we're doing it? And now they're bringing in, you see, the fact is that we're not fit to pay at all. And they've had to extend credit terms, which means they're actually mortgaging us further. There's another deal done yesterday, which now screws us even more. Because we're the ones that are financing it, it's not them.
And another 7 years,
another 7 years. So like that's your children's children that's going to be paying it. So like, where's it going to stop? Because like, the austerity isn't working. And it's not working, and they've actually admitted themselves it's not working, which means this is going to have a knock-on effect forever. Because this thing is never going to end, because you can't pay back that kind of money. And it's as simple as that. So geez, if you only just look at the volume of money we're talking about, we are never going to be fit to pay it back. So it's just going to get worse and worse and worse. And if you keep kicking the can down the road, when those payments become due, you have to then do another deal and kick the can down the road again. And it just gets worse, so you're going to have more tax and more tax and more tax coming. Are you aware of the amount of tax people pay at the minute? We won't bore everyone, but the reality of the situation is, if you earn 500 euros a week or whatever you bring home, you believe you've paid your tax and that's it. But so the reality situation is, if you stop in the pub on the way home on a Friday evening, you're paying duty and tax, okay, on the drink, and you're paying phenomenal amounts, because the government is getting more out of every drink that you drink than the actual person who made the drink. Now that's just can't stack up. So like, you were paying, then you go the next morning, you put petrol in your car, you're paying again duty and tax. You then go and do your grocery shopping, you're paying VAT all over the place. You then go and buy yourself a new jumper or a pair of shoes or something, you're being caught everywhere you go. You're paying tax. But the actual percentage that has been put on that, how much do you think it is?
75.
85%.
82% is what we're saying. So everybody, every 100 euros you earn, you are actually paying out 82% of it in taxes or duties or whatever. Now that's spectacular in itself, but what figure have the IMF put on our ability to pay? What would you think they think we're fit to pay?
Of 500%.
But they actually believe,
growing.
but they actually believe we, as a nation, are capable of paying 92% tax. So you will have €8 out of every €100 that you can actually do with what you like. Well, do you think that's going to be bringing you to Spain on your summer holidays? And that's the reality. Look, we had a meeting in Mullingar during the week, and a girl she cried in the audience when she told us that her father, because he is terrified of this, he's a pensioner, and after he puts away all his little bits of money to pay these taxes, he has €9 left to pay all of his bills. So in other words, the reality of his situation is, if we had gotten a worse winter this year, he could possibly be dead. Now, if that's acceptable on this island, sure, we'd be better off, we all just fecked off out of it, wouldn't we? Because it's not on.
There's a bit of information, yeah, we'll just, in a second, there's a bit of information we kind of left out earlier on, and I know there's some people aware of this information, and if you are, don't say anything. But with the first case we took with Tony Keegan into the High Court, we discussed it beforehand, and obviously there was a little bit of trepidation, for a little while anyway, with the man on whether or not he should go into the High Court. But once we told him what was involved, he said, yeah, that's no problem. So one of the key things that we discussed was the cost of going into the High Court. I know there's people in the room already know this, so if you don't mind just keeping stone on it for a minute. How much do you think it actually costs to go into the High Court to take a case against any of these people we mentioned, any of the ministers, any of the people in politics, or the ranking people, or the bankers? How much do you think it costs to bring a case into the High Court? $250,000 from this corner. Anybody else?
I would say 100,000.
Okay. Well, it can cost that sort of money if you're employing barristers and solicitors, definitely. Okay. But for you as lay people, us as people, to go into the High Court and take anybody in, and a group of them in, is €157. Now, who here knew that? I know people who did know, but anybody else? Hands up whom that is news to. Is that news? Most of the room, okay?
Yeah, but is that a shocking figure? So if you actually go in and represent yourself in the High Court, which you are 100% entitled to do, it will cost you €157 to bring anybody in there.
And that includes the
That's
stamp.
all it costs to go in. That's you standing in there now debating your case. So it's just, you see...
No catch.
No catch, that's it, that's the law. You just fill out your
If you're prepared to
form.
stand in your case and put forward your case, it's €157 to bring any man or woman on this island into the High Court.
But what it costs you then, the invoice you get from solicitors and barristers, is it?
Well, like you see, that's going on your own without a solicitor and barrister.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
You have to represent yourself then.
If you represent yourself, that's what it costs. The only cost to you is that and your time.
Yeah, but you want to well prepared, like, I mean.
Yeah.
What I mean, to get well prepared is going to cost you money.
How? But if you can educate yourself, sure, we have to read in the legislation here.
I know, but like, this is for the people listening to it.
No, here, we said at the very beginning, look, the only reason we're qualified to sit here and talk ourselves is because we can read. That's all, and even if you can't read, you can still listen and you can hear stuff. So that's what qualifies us lads to come down or walk around the country. The same as everybody else here is, you can read and you can understand. That's what qualifies us to walk into the High Court and say what we want to say.
But shouldn't we be educated in ourselves, lads? The reality is, we're responsible for our own ignorance. And the sadness is, these people have a policy of keeping us ignorant, and we're supposed to be kept ignorant because we're not supposed to know any of this stuff. And that way they can just keep putting this out, because they put their law out in the public forum, and the reality of the situation is how many Irish people read the law, number one, and then how many that read the law understood it, and then how many that understood it could actually see the scam in it. Very, very few. So the bottom line is, if we were all educated in the same way, and even people said, I actually believe that even if we fail in what we are doing, miserably, if we fail miserably, well, the reality is, if we have gotten in touch with all of the people on this island, because we're going all over this place and we'll be back down here again and everything, if we only instill in everybody that you have a duty to educate yourself. This would be a completely different island, because half of the stuff that's going on could not go on if the people actually understood what was going on around them. And if that just happens alone out of this, it was worth doing it. Now, but be under no illusions, we have no ambitions on losing this case. And I don't see for a minute how we can lose it. But the bottom line is, and this is it, we have an SPV. The SPV is set up, it's done and dusted, okay. So it doesn't matter. We have a case. The new case of the SPV is going into the court within the next few weeks. That's in, it doesn't matter whether we have only the shareholders who originally set up the SPV or if we have 4 million shareholders. It does not matter. We're still going in. But the reality is, if people don't become shareholders, there's nothing that can be done for them because you have to pay revenue. This is the system that we actually operate, because revenue have the wherewithal to come after the citizen. And it's as simple as that. So they can come, so you either stand in the queue and pay revenue, or you stand in the queue behind the SPV, which is AttackTheTax. You are fully protected behind the queue, behind AttackTheTax. You are fully protected, and at the end of it, if it goes wrong, it goes wrong. We will have fought it as hard as we can fight it. And that's all we can promise you, is that we won't stop the fight, and we won't give up in the middle of it, and we won't become afraid in the middle of the fight. We will finish the fight. But there's just one crucial question, I just get to this. There's one crucial question that is asked, and just in case it isn't asked, we put it out, is people want to know what happens if we fail. And this goes on for 5 years in the court. Are the people going to be crucified with penalties and charges and everything? Now, there is no 100% cast iron answer for that, because none of us can see into the future. But the reality of the situation is, the last person who lost the case in the High Court, which was known to be a special interest case or of public interest, was Mary Fleming. She was trying to have a right to assisted suicide, and she lost her case. Okay, so she lost the case, but the judges awarded in that case, because the case was of such public importance and interest, that they actually awarded her costs, and the state had to pay its own costs in that case. So in reality, if we push our machine along and we have the shareholders, because you see, the reason we need the shareholders, lads, is we can legally, everybody who becomes a shareholder gets a legal document, okay, which you are entitled to, your share certificate, which is a legal document issued by the CRO. That's your legal entitlement to be an interested party, and that's what gives you all your legal privileges. That document in no way creates any liability for you. If the SPV owes money, you cannot be held liable for any money that the SPV owes. You are just a shareholder. And the only thing that can happen to you is that you could lose the investment that you made in the SPV, which is the €2. And we all are aware of that. So that's really the crux of it. But so if our case goes wrong, and we have, let's say we do have our 1 million shareholders, how can any judge sit there when he now is going to make a ruling against the SPV? How can the judge suggest that that case is not of public importance, when if we have 1 million shareholders, we would have well over 50% of the people involved in a case suing the state? You have the state on one side saying that we have a mandate from the people to implement this tax, and on the other side you have more than 50% of the people suing them.
Just where do people sign on now? What's the course of action to become a shareholder?
You can do it online, you can do it here today, you can
just in case
fill it in later and post it
like
back. There's a whole lot of different ways you can become a shareholder.
Explain that.
What? This? I'm going to deal with this, and then look, we'll go straight into questions, answers, we'll deal with everything, because I think when we open the floor we can just deal with all the questions in once and we won't get run. This is the LPT1 form, lads. This is what everybody is getting from revenue at the minute, okay? See it?
Yeah.
LPT1 return. Now, that as a shareholder, we have this available to every shareholder. So when you get your LPT1 form, now it's irrelevant whether it's your sisters, your mothers, your daughters, anybody's name on the document. Doesn't matter. Because what happens is, Revenue have sent one of these out to anybody they have ever come across. Any name they have in a database got one of these. There's dead people getting it. But that's the reality. So what they have put is an onus on you then to contact them and testify either against the person who it should be in. So they want everybody to go, if you get it, if you get it and it's your son's name that's on it and it's your house, they want you to contact them and say, my son's name is on this and it shouldn't be on it, it should be mine. Basically, you're just after hanging yourself, and that's what they want. So eventually they will get it right. So they get to create this database and they didn't have to do any work to do it. What you should do is, doesn't matter whose name is on that form, if you are a shareholder, you should just put the sticker on it and send it back, because the sticker just says it's not appropriate. Okay, now we have put a message on it for them as well. We have quoted Enda in exactly what he says, because most people misquote him. Enda said in 1994, it is morally unjust and unfair to tax a person's home, and by so doing grind him into the ground. Indeed, in cases it could probably be unconstitutional. Now that's what Enda said in the Dáil in 1994. And now Enda sees the whole thing completely differently, because he has special glasses that he got from the IMF, and it shows the whole thing differently. But it's due to ongoing litigation over the legality of the property tax, which the above mentioned are a party to. It is wholly inappropriate to request a return in relation to this illegal tax until the outcome of this litigation is known. And then it says on the bottom, kindly respect our lawful right to litigate. Every man and woman on this child is entitled to take a case or become involved in a case. And once you do, they must respect your legal rights and your privileges. So, they have no business coming to collect money from you until the outcome of this case is known. Do you understand that?
Yeah, I was thinking that they're going to try and stall it and just drive on with this, like, you know.
Stall what?
Stall the outcome of the case and just bully people, railroad people into...
You can't, you see, the law won't allow revenue. You have to understand the law. Once there's a case, revenue have no right to ask any shareholder for money. They can't lawfully do it, because the shareholder is an interested party in a case that says this is illegal, and we are going to fight it and prove that it's illegal. So until such a time as it is determined by a judge that it is legal, revenue cannot get involved. Now, the next big issue that comes up is, I'm self-employed and I depend upon a C2 cert being issued, or I have subsidies that I'm getting on my farm, or I'm in receipt of social welfare and they're talking about taking my money. Revenue can take no money from nobody who is a shareholder. If you're not a shareholder, you are hanging in the wind, and all we can say is the best of luck to you, because you may deal with revenue. And whatever that outcome will be, revenue, I don't think, have lost too many of their battles in legal land with citizens who owe them money. Okay? The guy with the garlic and the apples and stuff got 6 years. So all I'm saying is...
That was fraud.
Yeah, but sure, they're saying, but sure, fraud. It's fraud, man. He didn't pay them.
Sure, the amount from Wexford still walking around.
Yeah, but he admitted to the fraud.
Sure, he got caught. He got caught. But look, we'll deal with the... I'm not ignoring it, but I just don't want to get dropped down. Can we just...
Could I ask...
We're being killed.
You're saying they're not appropriate. Now, I had one of your forms on, I have it signed.
Yes.
I have it signed. But I didn't get the property charges, my wife got it.
Yes.
Now, if I send back the form, but she's out of getting it.
Yeah, but what happens, look, in a house where you have two people, and this isn't designed because we want everybody to buy shares, but the reality is, if there's two people with their names on the property, the two people should be shareholders, because if one of them is a shareholder, there's nothing to stop revenue from going after the other.
Yeah, well, the way it is with me, like that, I'm nearly 57 years, and the thing about it is like that, when I bought the house, it was only just the one name went on the house.
Alright, so only one name on it?
Yeah.
Alright, well then you're fine. But it's in her name.
But just herself then, it's advocating the...
Yeah, but you see, what they want now is they want her to ring up and say, this is not to do with me, and then she'll have to give your name.
Yeah, but I suppose the only way is I could send back the form.
Well, I would actually only put not appropriate sticker on it, because at this stage we're not really interested in whose name is on the form, because if we can overthrow this tax, it doesn't matter whose name is on it, does it?
Yeah.
And that's basically it. So until such a time as the outcome of the case would be known, I wouldn't be over worried about whose name is on any of these forms,
Well,
because...
I won't be worried anyway, because I have no intention of saying anything.
But you look at, I think we have covered everything then. You have a question?
Oh, dear God, yes, for the past 50 minutes.
Now, in fairness, you have asked more questions than anyone else, so I'm trying to just be fair with everybody.
That's normal for me. But, you're supposed to keep me quiet for that thing to do. And I want to get back to the original case that was mentioned. And while I'm doing that, I'll just make one point. And that is, in Irish law, the narrower you can keep the argument, the more possibility of success. That's why I see any strength in this particular case. It's narrow, it's specific, and that's the only chance in Irish law you have of ever succeeding. And that was from a discussion with a good content. Anyway, what is the judge's reason for the adjournments in the district court? He has to provide, or she, or it, as the case may be, have to provide an actual reason for an adjournment. And they're only entitled to 3. I can't understand why it's can't.
No, you see, what they're doing is they're just calling it over, and you see what they're actually doing is they're using the fact that there is something going on in the High Court, and they're just using that so they don't have to hear, they don't want to hear the case. But it's a separate case. And the fact, the reason we put in the other case was we knew the effect it would have. And she is actually, in fairness to the judge, like, you can't say what is in the judge's head because we don't know, but it seems that she's not over keen on hearing the case. Anyway.
Well, yeah, well, I can actually see that point. But what I'm saying is, has she given a specific reason?
Yeah, but she has mentioned, she has said that the other case is before, and then she knew that the case was struck out, and she had said, well, fair enough. The last time then was, well, sure, maybe we won't hear it because they might go in an appeal. So she put it back for another 4 weeks, and now it'll be up again. And sure, if that goes into the Supreme Court, she's not going to touch it.
But she's actually limited to the amount of, and then this is from personal experience, she's limited to the amount of adjournments she can offer.
But she's had,
without striking it out.
yeah,
No, but we're aware.
There has been 5, and we're in for the 6th time now next month.
But we're aware of certain issues, and we have there are people actually even contact us and saying, you know, look at, you know, the amount of adjournments, and they're talking to us. These are people who are in the law, who are now out of it, maybe retired, and they're saying we have a phenomenal amount of retired solicitors looking to get involved in this.
There is one point, I don't know, we'll mention it, will we, about whether or not I'll say it. You see, there's a bit of confusion. This is where the issue of criminality and civil issues come in. One of the questions we're pondering upon, and we'll get clarity on eventually, is why is a private solicitor's practice prosecuting a case, a criminal case, for the state in the district court?
As opposed to the Attorney General.
As opposed to the state solicitor for that county.
Why is that going on? But that's also happening as well in other areas. So that's a very serious question. I mean, how can that happen?
Is it being made? Is it because that you're going after these people?
Look, we suspect.
You
see,
no. This guy, this is separate because sorry, we're all putting on it, but. The solicitor that is handling the case, that had nothing to do with anything. He was appointed to handle the case. He's the solicitor who sent the summons out to Tony Keegan. We didn't involve him in anything, so we didn't know who he was until he sent the summons.
The DPP should be sent to be doing it really.
Well, there's a state solicitor. There's a state solicitor in every county. So obviously the state solicitor is the person who should probably engage in that type of work, you would imagine. And now we have a private solicitor from a private practice who has actually written a specific actual document, because this guy was the head of...
He was the president of the Law
Society. The president of the Law Society, and he has written a few documents which would seem to maybe even contradict what he's actually doing at the moment. But that's all, as they said in The Wizard of Oz, a horse of a different colour. We'll have to deal with it at the particular time.
Look, just to answer the question, there's lots of issues that we're cognizant of, and we're taking in information all the time from ex-solicitors and ex-barristers. Now, there's very few of them, of course, that are live, running as live solicitors. The barristers actually want to engage with this because, you know yourself, they could be damaged by it. But we are actually, there's plenty of people coming to us and they want to get on board. But we're going to run with this. We'll see where it goes. We know where it'll go. The likelihood is, whatever cases we bring into the High Court will probably end up in the Supreme Court anyway.
But it will definitely end up.
Yeah.
There's nothing to say it won't. Claire.
And will go to Europe after that?
Possibly.
Yeah. Well, look, we're not going to lie down. If we lose a case in the Supreme Court, I'm not just going to say, well, okay, lads, we'll give it a good shot. Because we're going in on points of law. Now, it is possible, because the fact that we are suing the state, it is possible we mightn't receive the type of justice we should receive, because we are actually asking their own system to come back and bite them. So it is possible that we mightn't receive any justice at all. But when we do bring it into the European courts, well, now it will have to be forensically looked at, because we've brought it into an arena where everybody needs to see was